Hello, everybody. Greetings to you. On behalf of the Multicultural Center, we'd like to thank you for your continued support of the programs and partnerships and services of the Multicultural Center. My name is Melvin Wade. I'm the director. I would like to thank the campus for its support of the activities of MLK Week. We've actually had our best MLK Week in spite of the volatile weather conditions. As you know, 2 days of this week were postponed. I think my staff and students are just happy to get to this last day of Martin Luther King Week. Uh, I would also like to thank a number of major sponsors who have been uh, extremely helpful in shaping this week. The Office of the President, the Office of the Provost, the Office of the Associate Vice President for Community, Diversity, and Equity, the Center for Nonviolence and Peace Studies, the Office of the Chaplains, the Feinstein Center for Service Learning, URI Fraternities and Sororities, the School of Education, the Office of Dining Services, a group in Providence called Love Providence, Central Falls Middle School, the Urban Collaborative Middle School from Providence, the URI Martin Luther King Week Planning Committee, the Cognitive Dissidents, the African American Studies Program, Diversity House, the Departments of Psychology and Communication Studies, in addition to the Multicultural Center. I would like to introduce, or rather present, because you all know the MC for this occasion. Last year, she was the keynote speaker for this event. And she delivered one of the 2 or 3 most stirring addresses that I think we've ever had at URI Martin Luther King Week. We had about 140 people in attendance, and we realized, because of the response to her and to the speech, that we had to find a new venue, and that is why, for the first time after all these years, we're meeting here in the Memorial Union Ballroom. And so there were about 400 additional people who were unable to attend, who were able to watch the address on webcast. And today's event is also webcast. The acknowledgement that we would like to of the speaker, of the MC, I would just like to bring her forward on this occasion. Would you join me in welcoming our MC, Reverend Lynn Baker Dooley?
I do want to just say a special thank you to everyone who worked so hard twice now to get this event off. So rescheduling it last week because of the weather. I think all of you suffered terribly during that storm, and I apologize for being in Florida at the time. But it sure made it good for me that the weather made it rescheduled, because that made it possible for me to be with you today, and that means a lot to me. I want to welcome all of you to the 25th annual celebration at the University of Rhode Island of Dr. King's life and legacy. The objectives of this week Our first, to create an awareness of the life and intellectual legacy of Dr. King, our nation's preeminent civil rights leader. Secondly, to commemorate the local, national, and global contributions of Dr. King and the civil rights movement to society. And lastly, to engage in service that applies community, justice, and nonviolence to our lives in the 21st century. Our theme this year for this week has been creating the beloved community on campus and beyond. And that is taken from Dr. King's inspiring words. Our goal is to create a beloved community, and this will require a qualitative change in our souls as well as a quantitative change in our lives. According to the history of the University of Rhode Island, Dr. King spoke here before about 5,000 people in Caney Gym during October of 1966. I am pleased to introduce and ask my friend, Reverend Jennifer Phillips, to come forward. She's a poet, a theologian, and an author, and currently the vicar at St. Augustine's and an Episcopal Chaplain Associate for URI. She's going to present the 2011 Peacemaker Awards today.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I'm honored to introduce the URI Chaplains Association Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Peacemaker Award winners for 2010. We, your chaplains at URI, are several of us here. I'd like to introduce my colleagues and just ask them to stand as a group. Please hold your applause till the end, if you'd like to applaud. Serving at the Catholic Center, we have Father Matthew Glover, who also assists at Christ the King Parish. We have Ms. Amy Olson, the director of Hillel, who is here also with Ms. Joey Schwartz, the Hillel program director. Stand up, guys. Not present, I think, although I didn't see everyone come in, the Reverend Juliet Bongfeld, who is the Lutheran Chaplain Associate and who is the pastor of the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd. Father Anthony Perkins, who is the Orthodox Chaplain Associate and the rector of St. Michael's Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Woonsocket. Syed Assem Abalmalati, leader of the Muslim Community Center. Mr. Adam Croft, who is the missioner for the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. Ms. Joanne Friday, who is the Dharma teacher of the Clear Heart Sangha and Buddhist Chaplain Associate. And we're also delighted to have collaborating with us as chaplains in the association, the Reverend Patricia Liberty, who is the interim pastor at Kingston Congregational Church, and the Reverend Lynn Baker Dooley. So, colleagues, thank you for the work you do here. As a result of a high visibility, successful, and peaceful action by the URI Gay Straight Alliance and the GLBT Center, our campus has taken strides toward increasing public awareness, social civility toward persons of any sexual orientation, increasing a sense of community and strength within the LGBTQ population, and making URI a more welcoming, warm, and respectful environment for everyone. This year, in the spirit of Dr. King, the URI Chaplains Association is pleased to award Martin Luther King Jr. Peacemaker Award certificates to the organizations and to some of their fine leaders, and our congratulations to all the members of these two campus organizations. So I'd like the members of GSA and the GLBT Center who are in the room to please stand, and everyone appreciate the work of all of these young folks and their leaders. And I would like a representative from GSA and from the GLBT Center to come forward, please, to receive. Andrew Winter is coming up for the Gay Straight Alliance. Come on up on stage. Yes.
Everybody. Um, we'd also like to award another award, if you will, to Andrew Winters for his great dedication, work, hard blood, sweat, tears that he's put into the GLBT Center, that it has made it today. It's warm and welcoming and inviting center. And so all of us from the GLBT Center actually put together an award. He doesn't know it, but we're presenting him with an award. A certificate of service and admirable citizenship to Andrew Winters.
Thanks, everybody. I wasn't really planning to say anything, but I want to because I'm very moved not only by what's happened here today, but can I take 1 second and share a story? So my office is being, they were doing some renovation in my office because Assignment's office is moving over there, and so we had asbestos removal. And as a result, I had help from people to pick up my organized piles and put them in unmarked boxes. So I'll be going through those boxes for the next several months. But I think it was meant to happen because yesterday, as a matter of fact, I reached into one of my boxes and I found a copy of Bay Windows, which is the New England gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender newspaper. And it was from 1999. And there was a cover story, 1999, which preceded the development of the Rainbow Diversity House at that time. And there was a photograph on the front page that actually was a photograph that I had taken after there was a lot of commotion and incident over at that house. And the photograph shows on the side of that building, unfortunately painted, were the words FURI and no fags. And that was in 1999. It also indicates that in 1999, our campus, unfortunately, was listed as the 4th most homophobic campus in America on the Princeton Review's list of the 10 most homophobic campuses. And I'm not saying that to bring up bad news or to reflect poorly on the university. We were 2 years in a row actually on that list. That was 4 years after I came here in 1995 and realized that there were a lot of issues and had been speaking up and recognized how hard it was. So I'm saying that with backdrop and acknowledging the fact that our struggle is continuing. This afternoon, as many people know, there's a marriage equality rally. We're trying in Rhode Island to promote marriage equality. There'll be testimony. There's many of our students have been involved in that. But also I want to say this. What the students did this year was a gift to this university and this community that was most profound. I share the backstory because I want people to know the depth of the problem that we have to confront on this campus and campuses throughout America. These students have broken with a tradition of silence and helped to establish themselves as role models for the generations of the future. We couldn't be more fortunate than to have this group of people here, and I would like them to stand up again and get the round of applause that they deserve. And just one more thing, and to say this, that even in the face of that leadership, they had to endure additional abuse, threats. There was a death threat that was left at the center, and they still kept on going and providing with love and caring and kindness, really direction and a kind of information to the community that we will all benefit from if we heed and embrace. So I want to thank you all. I love you all. And thank you so much for what you're doing. Stand up, please.
Peacemaking and advocacy is costly, and you all should know that by assuming their leadership, the young people we honor today allow themselves to become public figures and vulnerable to the hostility of others, following in Dr. King's tradition of what he called unearned suffering that is redemptive for the community. They bear this on all of our behalf, and we owe them our solidarity, prayers, and support. Now, 3 faculty members independently nominated one leader, student Brian Stack, for his, quote, leadership qualities, humanity, and wisdom, as well as his academic excellence, months before the sit-in this year, when URI GLBT students were victims of a horrific series of hate crimes that resulted in at least one arrest. He was there in the dorms offering comfort, advice, and strength. I want to recognize the faculty nominators for Brian, Drs. Cheryl Foster, Joelle Rollo-Coster, and Dr. Bridget Buxton. Would you stand, please? Thank you. And now I'm going to invite up the honored leaders and come up when you hear your name for certificates. And please hold your applause till they are all called forward. First of all, Brian. Brian Stack is a junior majoring in philosophy and history and a minor in Latin with a 4.0 GPA. Well done, Brian. In the fall of his sophomore year, he started the Gay Straight Alliance on campus and has been its president since then. He is also president of Philonymous, which is the philosophy club on campus. In free time, he volunteers at the GLBT Center, and outside of the university, he is active in libertarian politics and is vice chair for the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island. Come on up, Brian. Next, we will honor Kevin Cruz, a current sophomore and biology major, minoring in theater. Kevin currently works at the GLBT Center as the co-chair of the Welcome Project, as an advocate, and in events coordination. He works in the Boss Ice Arena's Slapshots and in Fine Arts Center's Costumes Shop. He has an interest in religion and has participated in missionary trips from close to home to as far away as South Africa, where his group spread a word of hope and love in the informal settlements there and in AIDS hospitals. Kevin has participated in the recent training for resident advisors on bullying and plans to continue his pursuit for equality and to help URI move forward with becoming a more inclusive and welcoming campus. Come on up, Kevin. Next, hold your applause, please. Riley Davis, you'll get the chance. Riley Davis is a URI undergraduate studying biomedical engineering, biological science, and Mandarin Chinese. She has a lot of spare time, I can tell. In her year and a half at URI, she has earned the vice president position and is now president of the American Medical Student Association URI chapter. He is vice president of the Gay Straight Alliance, coordinator of the Student Diversity Council, IMU, a member of the Equity Council, an undergraduate member of the Women's Alumni Council, an active member of URI's Emergency Medical Services team, works for classroom media assistance, and tirelessly seeks to create advocates for the welfare of all students on and off campus. Riley, please come up. Next, we honor Joe Santiago, a teacher, trainer, and facilitator, author in a variety of fields: computer electronics, research design, technical and creative nonfiction writing, and social media strategies, graphic design, workshop design. He founded the World Voice series, which is an internationally published cultural exchange where people share their lives, passions, spiritual pilgrimages, and humanity through poetry, stories, and art. He says, when we get together to share our experiences, we begin to see ourselves as individuals that are part of constellations of culture and diversity, instead of perceiving diversity as something separate from us and acting upon our lives. He is the webmaster of the GLBT website and an instructional program coordinator studying psychology and hosting a community writing circle. Joe, come up. Next, we honor Justin Wilner. Justin is a sophomore computer science and journalism major, also a GLBT advocate who works with the center as a Welcome Project co-chair and program coordinator. He works hard making the URI campus community, as well as the broader community around us, a better place for GLBT students. He says he feels confident that the campus climate will begin to see progress and change soon. And I can tell you, because of these young people, the campus climate is already changed and changing even as we speak. Please join me now in congratulating these outstanding leaders. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. As one of the relatively new members of this already beloved URI community, David and I want to add our congratulations to our 2011 Peacemaker Award winners for the impact of their commitment to justice, to transforming our community, and to nonviolent social change. They've been an inspiration to all of us, and it's been a joy to get to know them individually, and it will be a privilege to continue to watch these students change our world. Now I'm pleased to present Dr. Paul Bueno de Mesquita, Professor of Psychology and Director of the Center of Nonviolence and Peace Studies, who will introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and thank you, Jennifer, and members of the Peacemaker Committee for wonderful work that you've done over a number of years instituting this award and for recognizing students on our campus and organizations that are truly promoting the spirit of nonviolence and really, in a sense, educating us all about the values and principles put forth by Dr. King in a very active, living way. Thanks again, and I want to congratulate Brian, Kevin, Riley, Justin, and Joe on your bold and courageous demonstration and taking what Dr. King would call dramatic, direct action to sometimes step beyond the boundaries of the rules and to break a few rules, but really help us move to a more equitable and just and beloved community. Today you're going to hear briefly from our Martin Luther King Week keynote speaker, someone who's broken a few rules himself, and I'm sure we can all learn from his experiences and his life. It's a real honor to welcome Reverend John Deere to our campus. He'll be speaking with us today at the luncheon, and then of course we want to invite everyone to enjoy a more extended talk that will be presented tonight in Chafee Hall, 271 Lecture Hall this evening. Reverend John Deere is a Jesuit priest, a pastor, a peace activist, an organizer, a lecturer, a facilitator of retreats, a prolific author, 25 books on the subjects of nonviolence, peace, and justice, and a number of articles. From 1998 until December 2000, he served in a very prominent role as the executive director of the Fellowship of Reconciliation. The Fellowship of Reconciliation is the largest interfaith peace organization in the United States, with a very notable history of promoting peace and nonviolence, not only in the United States, but globally. From 2002 to 2004, he served as pastor of several parishes in northeastern New Mexico, where he lives. Currently, he coordinates Pax Christi, lectures to thousands of people each year in churches, schools, organizations, and communities across the country. After the September 11th, 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center, John became involved as a volunteer and a Red Cross chaplain. He coordinated much of the chaplain program there in response to that tragedy. He worked with 1,500 family members who had lost their loved ones, hundreds of firefighters and police officers. And at the same time, he took a very active and public stand speaking out against the U.S. bombing of Afghanistan. He is a longtime practitioner and teacher of nonviolence. He's given hundreds of talks on this topic. His work has taken him to El Salvador, where he's lived and worked in refugee camps in the 80s, to Guatemala, Nicaragua, Haiti, the Middle East, the Philippines, Northern Ireland, where he lived and worked as a human rights advocate for a year, and to Iraq, where he led a delegation of Nobel Peace Prize winners to witness the effects of the deadly sanctions on Iraqi children. He has run a shelter for the homeless in Washington, D.C. He served as executive director of the Sacred Heart Center, a community center for disenfranchised women and children in Virginia. A native of North Carolina, John was arrested on December 7th, 1993, one of approximately 75 arrests. I think we're up to 76 now recently. But in 1993, a very courageous act of civil disobedience at the Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro, North Carolina. He and other activists engaged in dramatic direct action by hammering on an F-15 nuclear fighter bomber in an effort to demonstrate the beating swords into plowshares principle. Along with activist Philip Berrigan, he spent 8 months in a North Carolina jail for this. Deere has been arrested over 75 times for civil disobedience, advocating for peace and nonviolence and justice. He's organized hundreds of demonstrations. Primarily, he is focused on ending war and eliminating nuclear weapons at military bases across the country. As well, he has worked with Mother Teresa and others to put an end to the death penalty. He has 2 master's degrees in theology from the Graduate Theological Union in California. In 2008, he was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. I'll just read briefly, and then we'll hear from John. From that nomination letter, Father John Deere is a priest who's been in the forefront of the peace movement in the United States. He is the embodiment of a peacemaker. He's led by example through his actions and in his writings, numerous sermons, speeches, and public demonstrations. He believes that peace is not something static, but rather to make peace, is to be engaged, mind, body, and spirit. His teaching is to love yourself, to love your neighbor, to love your enemy, and to love the world, and to understand the profound responsibility in doing all of these. Dr. King's first principle of nonviolence is that nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. And certainly today you're going to hear from a courageous nonviolent peace activist. John Deere, please welcome.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for welcoming me. Do you remember April 3rd, 1968, in Memphis? And there's Dr. King in front of 15,000 people, and he says those famous words, "I've been to the mountaintop. I've looked over and seen the promised land. I may not get there, but we as a people will get there." Remember, we all heard that story. Just before he said that, Dr. King said, "The choice is no longer violence or nonviolence." That's not what we're talking about. It's nonviolence or non-existence. Those are the last words of this great mighty prophet of peace and justice to us before our government killed him. And I think that sums up the situation we're in today. And that's what I'm going to be speaking about tonight. Why I'm so happy to be here with you, to meet the great holy peacemakers here, and to encourage you in this journey with the Multicultural Center and Dr. King Week. But I want to talk with you and reflect with you and urge you, and with me too, to figure out how can you and I fulfill Dr. King's dream of becoming people of nonviolence and transforming the world from a world of violence and war and destruction on the brink of what he called non-existence to a whole new world of nonviolence. That's the mission. It's so exciting and challenging and hard and scary. I want to thank Melvin and for your great work here, and Paul for the Center on Nonviolence. I'm very, very impressed, and I've known about you all since I've been following Dr. Bernard Lafayette for years, and was so happy when he came here, and I thought, something's going on at the University of Rhode Island. It's really great. How do we do this? What does it mean to be a person of nonviolence? How do we make the university a school, a training camp, a cell of nonviolence? How do you make Rhode Island a state of nonviolence? How do we transform all the churches and the religions, our cities, into a place of nonviolence? How do we end our country's rush to war and supporting wars around the world so that we can actually abolish war, poverty, executions, of course racism and sexism and all these other forms of violence, and save the earth? Is it possible? This is the great challenge facing all of us. This is what your work is about and what we're called to do. I think that's what Dr. King wants. For me, I think of life now as a journey, spiritual life, as a journey on the road to peace and nonviolence. It's a great way to reflect on your life. Where are you on the road to peace and nonviolence? How can we move from being stuck in violence in ourselves, in our hearts, our families, on campus, in the country, to really becoming more and more like Martin Luther King, people of profound inner nonviolence, personal, interpersonal nonviolence, and joining with the whole world as we're walking down a new road to peace. And tonight, when I talk, I want to reflect with you on what does this clumsy, crazy word mean that he got from Gandhi? How do you define it, and how can we unpack it? I don't even use the word love anymore, or peace, because everybody's for love. I love my car, the word is, or peace. Oh my gosh, in New Mexico at Los Alamos, the birthplace of the bomb where business is booming, they're all for peace. Nobody uses this word nonviolence. Here's what I get from Dr. King, if you will. Nonviolence means remembering fundamental spiritual truth of reality, that we're all one, All life is sacred. Every human being is a beloved son or daughter of the God of peace. Therefore, we're all beloved sisters and brothers of one another. And so that's why Dr. King speaks of the goal, as you are all celebrating, the goal of welcoming the beloved community, what Jesus called the reign of God. So, what does it mean to really, really claim your core fundamental identity as a human being? You are the beloved son or daughter of the God. Your sister and brother, every human being on the planet, all 7 billion people. We can go deep into that like Dr. King. Friends, we can never hurt one another ever again. Ever hurt anybody. Much less be silent while there are 35 wars happening today. 1 billion people starving to death. 25,000 nuclear weapons. And I haven't even mentioned global warming. This rush toward destroying the planet, what King called non-existence. So there's nothing passive about this nonviolence as a way of life. Dr. King was right. It's active, daring, creative, public, bold, revolutionary. Active love, pursuing the truth of our common unity, resisting every type of violence and structure of injustice, allowing God to disarm our hearts of the roots of violence within us, that we can be instruments of disarming peace, reconciling with every human being everywhere. From this day forward, practicing unconditional, unlimited, non-retaliatory, sacrificial, universal love. Every human being and all creatures in creation itself. With one catch. It's a doozy. And this is where we all get in trouble. There is no cause, however noble, no matter what they tell us, whether it's George W. Bush or Barack Obama, for which we will ever again support the taking of a single human life. What do you think of that? Well, think about that one. It's a tough one. We no longer support the culture of killing or violence. We are people of unconditional nonviolent love who are willing to give our lives for the whole human race, the welcoming of the beloved community. And nonviolence begins in the heart, it begins in creating communities of nonviolence. Then King taught us through a methodology that we can build movements to end racism and segregation, poverty and war, and nuclear weapons, and even global warming. It's possible. You say, well, that's a little over the top. That's not possible. I think it is. Imagine the abolitionists standing up saying, we are announcing the abolition of slavery. They lifted up this vision of equality, which we're pursuing now. They gave their lives for it. We are their ancestors. That's what you are doing here today at this luncheon. And you're announcing to Rhode Island and the United States, excuse me, we are announcing the abolition of war, poverty, nuclear weapons, and violence. And we're going to reclaim the imagination for peace, and lift up this vision and point everybody to it, and help build a movement to make it happen. That's what they're trying to do in Egypt. That's what many of us are trying to do all across the country. Grassroots movements for peace and justice. To all the students here, I just really want to encourage you. Use this time wisely to study peace and justice. You've got these wonderful people like Melvin and Paul teaching Kingian nonviolence, and to spend your lives being peacemakers, nonviolent resistors, and really heralding and welcoming Dr. King's great vision of the beloved community. It's the greatest thing we can do with our lives. And I'm so happy to be here and to meet all of you. I look forward to, I have my books in the back, or seeing you tonight, and to continue the conversation about how we can walk the road to peace together. So thanks very much. God bless you. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
In closing, we'd just like to repeat for all of you a reminder to be at the closing events of Martin Luther King Week. The Multicultural Center Sustained Dialogue Project will hold its first meeting of the semester in the Multicultural Center Conference Room number 201 from 5:45 to 7 o'clock tonight. Don't miss that first meeting, and then, of course, following that meeting is the lecture by Reverend John Deere in Chafee Auditorium. So we hope to see you all there. And now Paul is going to come and lead us as we sing together, "We Shall Overcome."